Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going over a quick, simple, hacky program that I wrote to extract and export logs from the WordFence web application firewall plugin that WordPress users like myself use. Very simply, what this program is going to do is it's a shell script and it's going to export logs from your WordFence plugin into a .csv file, which will allow you to do external analysis, find trends in attacks. Something I threw together because I was very interested in seeing if I could find any correlations with the attacks that were happening on my personal website. So in this demonstration, we are going to have a WordPress website set up with the WordFence plugin installed, and we're going to be using my program LogFence in order to export those logs because that functionality is not built into WordFence. So getting started, if you want, in a home lab or whatever you're doing, I have a quick WordPress setup script that'll walk you through setting up WordPress and make it super duper easy. However, if I navigate to my local host on port 80, you see I already have a simple WordPress website set up. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and log in. And after I log into my site, I'm going to head over to the WordFence plugin and go to Tools. And I'm going to get any traffic that I have that's malicious. So here I have simulated malicious traffic, and I'm going to demonstrate how I simulated that in just a second. But be sure that you go to Firewall, Manage Web Application Firewall, and just be sure that the Web Application Firewall status is enabled and protecting. Because when you first set up a WordPress website and enable this plugin, it's going to start out in learning mode for a little while. So just if you want to do this as an example, or if you have an actual website, this is probably already enabled, but just be sure that that's the case, and then go ahead and click Save Changes. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and go over to my GitHub page, Sentinel Max-LogFence. You're going to copy the HTTPS, and you're going to type git clone and the name of the repository. I have already done this, so if I type ls, we can see I have both set up here. If you're going to want to set up the WordPress website to do this demonstration, you're going to change directories into quick WordPress setup, and then you're going to run the bash script. But again, we already have our setup, so we don't need to do that. What we're going to do is cd into our LogFence program. If it's not already, give this program execution privileges, and be sure that you run this program as root user or type sudo before you run it, otherwise it won't work. So the next thing I'm going to do is generate malicious traffic. I'll demonstrate how I do this. I'm going to be using a tool called SQL Map. If you don't have that installed already, it's sudo apt install SQL Map, but I already have it installed. And if you want to see how the tool works, you can read the man page. But very simply, we're just going to plug in a URL and have it crawl through a bunch of redirects. And it's going to attempt to inject a SQL query in any fields that are improperly filtered. So we're going to type SQL map -u HTTP localhost on port 80. We're going to do --crawl equals 2. I'm going to type yes, give the number of threads. And while that's running in the background, it may prompt me to answer a couple other questions, but I'm just going to pull this by so we can see if it's updating in real time. So again, it's testing whether or not there are injectable fields on this website. I don't think there is any, but the point of this is to generate some malicious traffic that we can look at and export using our tool. So we can see here a bunch of malicious traffic generated, and it's been blocked. This WordFence plugin will give you the IP address. It will determine whether or not it's a human or a bot via a couple methods, but I think for this it's just looking at the user agent to determine whether or not it's malicious. But it will give you a reason for why it was blocked and a potential vulnerability associated with it. So we can go ahead and close SQL Map with Control-C, clear out our terminal, and now we want to export these logs. Again, the reason I wrote this program is because this functionality is not built into WordFence. You can't export logs. We can see there's a tab, import/export options, but this only lets you export site settings. So the way we're going to export our logs is by executing the program I wrote. But before we do that, we're going to need to know what the name of our WordPress database is. So here's how you do that. Type in MySQL, and we get into the MySQL CLI. Then we're going to type show databases. It looks like our WordPress database is just called WP. So I'm going to go ahead and run my program by going to demo where I installed it. And I'm going to type sudo logfence. It's going to ask me, what's the name of your MySQL database? My WordPress website, it's WP. Now, what's interesting about this is I was curious about like what information was actually stored in the WordPress database. So you can actually check that out. We can type use WP, and it says database changed, and then we can show all of the tables in that database just by typing show tables. We can see all our tables. So what my program does is very simply pulls information from this table right here, WordPress_WordFence hits. If we go ahead and query all of the data in that, just raw, select from WordPress_WordFence hits, we can see that it's a lot. So I went through the hassle of decoding what all this information was, but it's very simple. It provides you the user agent, who it was blocked by, what the potential vulnerability was that the attacker was trying to exploit, and then a bunch of other parameters here like the ID of the attack. This big number is the seconds. It's actually a Unix timestamp, so it's the number of seconds since January 1st, 1970. And we have a bunch of useful information here that we could drop into a .csv file. So my program makes this easy to export and format. So I'm going to name the output file attack log. Now we don't have to put a file extension name here because my program automatically tags that on at the end. So go ahead and type enter. And it's going to say output file stored in the temporary directory. Now the reason it does this is because a couple directories where MySQL will allow you to write output files to. And we can actually go to our MySQL CLI and type in something like show variables like secure _file _file. And this is going to tell us, hey, do we have this set up to only allow us to write secure files in a specific path? Right now it's not set up to anything, but my program will automatically detect that and write to that location. If this value is null, it will just write to the temporary directory because MySQL has permissions there. So it's going to ask you, would you like to transfer the file to another machine? So this is going to be on your local network. Of course, you could port forward and do this across the internet, but I'm not sure I really see any use case for that. It's just going to set up a very simple Python web server. So now if we go ahead and check the temporary directory and we list files, we see we have something called attacklog.csv. We can go ahead and check that out. We see we have our information like ID, attack log time, ctime, IP, and it's all formatted very, very nicely. And you can end up making charts to find if there's any correlations. So this has been a video on how to use LogFence to export logs from your WordFence plugin on your WordPress website. Thank you guys for watching, and I appreciate your time.